Here is something that health researchers have been saying for years, but that most Canadians still have not fully taken in. Being lonely or socially isolated is as damaging to your body as smoking 15 cigarettes every single day. Not emotionally damaging, physically damaging. It raises your blood pressure, it increases inflammation throughout your body, it weakens your immune system, and it significantly raises your risk of dementia, stroke, and heart disease. For Canadian seniors, loneliness and social isolation have now been officially declared a public health epidemic. Not a personal problem, not a sign of weakness, a national health crisis affecting nearly half of all Canadians over the age of 50. And yet, it barely gets talked about. Today, we are going to change that, because there are programs, communities, and tools available right now across Canada that are specifically designed to help, and most seniors have never heard of them. I will also come back to one later in this video that requires no internet, no smartphone, and no leaving your home. For seniors with limited mobility, it may be the most valuable thing in this entire video. So please stay with me. Welcome. My name is Martina, and today we are talking about social isolation and loneliness among Canadian seniors, what the health science actually says about how serious this is, why it is happening to so many people, the real barriers that keep seniors from connecting even when they want to, and the specific programs available across Canada that are making a real difference. Whether this applies to you personally or to someone you love, this video has something important in it. Let us get into it. Before we get into today's topic, if you are new here, welcome. This channel is updated every single day with the latest news, changes, and tips for Canadian pensioners. We have covered everything from missed GIS payments and CPP timing decisions to provincial benefits most seniors never even knew existed, to how to protect yourself from the scams that are targeting retirees right now. Simple language, no jargon, just the information you actually need. So if that sounds useful to you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update that could affect your pension or your pocket. Now, let's get into today's video. Let us start by separating two things that people often use interchangeably because they are actually different, and understanding the difference matters. Social isolation is about the number of people in your life. It is objective. It can be measured. If you rarely see or speak to other people, if your social circle has shrunk significantly, if you live alone and go days without meaningful contact, that is social isolation. Loneliness is different. It is about how you feel. You can be surrounded by people and still feel deeply lonely. You can live alone and feel completely content and connected. Loneliness is the gap between the relationships you have and the relationships you wish you had. It is subjective, it is internal, and according to research, it is actually more damaging to the brain than isolation alone. Why does that distinction matter? Because it tells us that fixing social isolation is not just about getting people into a room together. It is about meaningful connection, the kind that leaves you feeling seen, valued, and genuinely part of something. And that is a higher bar, but it is also an achievable one, and that is what today's video is about. Right now in Canada, about 43% of Canadians aged 50 and older are at risk of social isolation, and up to 59% report having experienced loneliness. These are not small numbers. These are your neighbors, your friends, possibly yourself on some days. And the troubling thing is that these numbers have barely changed since 2022, which tells us that simply reopening the world after the pandemic did not fix the underlying problem. The barriers to connection run deeper than that. So what are those barriers? Because this is where a lot of people get stuck. They want to connect, they want to be around people, but something keeps getting in the way. The most commonly cited barrier, mentioned by more than a third of seniors, is cost. Social activities have hidden costs: a membership fee, a bus fare, a coffee when you get there. For someone on a fixed income, those small amounts add up quickly. And when you are already worried about your monthly budget, the idea of spending on something that feels like a luxury becomes very difficult to justify, even when you genuinely need it. The second barrier is physical health. Chronic pain, Mobility challenges and low energy are not excuses. They are real constraints that make it genuinely harder to get out and participate. This is especially true for seniors in their 80s and above, where the effort of getting dressed and out the door can feel enormous. And then there is a third barrier that I think does not get enough attention. About 29% of seniors say they do not have anyone to go with. They want to join a group or attend an event, but the idea of walking into a room full of strangers alone is more daunting than staying home. It is not shyness. It is the very human discomfort of entering unfamiliar social spaces without a familiar face beside you. And for many seniors, that barrier is the one that keeps them from taking the first step. There is also something worth naming that I think a lot of older Canadians feel but rarely say out loud. Over half of seniors report that negative attitudes about aging from society around them affect their sense of belonging. Being dismissed, overlooked, or spoken down to, sometimes by well-meaning younger people, sometimes by strangers, sometimes even by healthcare providers, erodes confidence and makes seniors less likely to put themselves out there. When you feel invisible, reaching out feels pointless. Now, let me tell you about what the science actually says about what this does to the body, Kaideb, because I want you to take this seriously in a way that a lot of people have not. Chronic loneliness triggers a stress response in the body. It raises levels of cortisol, the stress hormones, over time. It increases blood pressure. It drives inflammation throughout the system. And inflammation, as we increasingly know, is connected to almost every major chronic disease: heart disease, stroke, diabetes, even cancer. For the brain specifically, the research is striking. Socially isolated seniors face a significantly higher risk of developing dementia. And here is the part that surprised researchers most. Loneliness on its own is actually a stronger predictor of memory decline than isolation alone. A senior who is socially isolated but not lonely, who has found meaning in reading, hobbies, or solo pursuits, maintains better cognitive health than someone who is surrounded by people but still feels disconnected and invisible. The emotional experience of loneliness, it turns out, is more damaging to the brain than simply being alone. A study from the University of Waterloo tracked seniors over 6 years and found this pattern clearly. The most significant memory decline happened in seniors who were both isolated and lonely. But loneliness without isolation was the second worst outcome. Worse than isolation without loneliness. That tells us something very important. The quality and warmth of connection matters more than the quantity. What does this mean practically? It means that a weekly phone call with someone who genuinely listens to you may do more for your long-term brain health than attending a social event where you feel overlooked. Meaningful beats frequent. Let me introduce you to someone. We will call her Evelyn. She is 74. She lives in a mid-sized city in Ontario. Her husband passed away 3 years ago. Her daughter lives across the country and calls every Sunday. Evelyn has a few neighbors she waves to, and she sees her doctor every few months. On paper, she is not completely isolated, but most days she does not have a real conversation with anyone. She stopped going to the community center after her hip surgery because the buses were hard to navigate, and she did not want to ask anyone for a ride. She tells herself she is fine, but she has noticed that her memory has been foggy lately. She has been watching more television, and she cries more than she used to, though she would never tell her daughter that. Evelyn is not unusual. There are hundreds of thousands of people like her across Canada right now, and the heartbreaking part is that there are programs designed exactly for her situation, programs she has never heard of, because no one ever told her they existed. That is what the rest of this video is for. Let us talk about the programs that are working, the ones that are genuinely making a difference for isolated seniors across Canada. The first one I want to highlight is for people exactly like Evelyn. People for whom getting out of the house is difficult or impossible. It is called the Senior Centre Without Walls, and it is one of the simplest and most effective programs running in Canada right now. Here is how it works. You do not need a smartphone. You do not need the internet. You do not need to leave your home. The center calls you at the scheduled time. Your phone rings, you press one button, and you are connected to a group of people for a conversation, a trivia game, a health talk, or a music session. That is it. Participants across Canada, from Moose Jaw in Saskatchewan to Aurora in Ontario, have described it as a lifeline. One participant said it made her life feel brighter. Another said it was the only time during the week she felt like herself again. For seniors with mobility challenges, for people in smaller communities with limited transportation, and for anyone who has been feeling the walls close in, this program is worth knowing about. Your local seniors center or a quick call to 211, the free national helpline I will come back to in a moment, can connect you with whether it is available near you. Now let me talk about something that has helped tens of thousands of Canadian men, because men face a specific and often unspoken challenge with social isolation in retirement. Many men build their social lives around work. Their colleagues are their friends. Their routine gives them structure and identity. And then retirement arrives, and without a plan, both the friends and the structure disappear at once. Men are significantly less likely than women to seek out traditional social groups or support services. The idea of going to a social club or a seniors group feels unfamiliar or uncomfortable to a lot of older men. This is where Men's Sheds Canada has built something remarkable. A men's shed is a community workshop, a physical space where men come together to work on projects, woodworking, repairs, building things, fixing things. The social connection happens naturally, shoulder to shoulder, while doing something meaningful. Nobody has to talk about their feelings. Nobody has to admit they are lonely. They just come in, pick up a tool, and get to work. And friendships form in the process. Research presented in Edmonton in 2026 showed that after joining a men's shed, 74% of participants reported a strong sense of belonging, compared to only 34% before they joined. Nearly 60% reported improved mental health, and almost half had experienced meaningful conversations about their well-being, conversations that helped them feel less alone. All while building a birdhouse or repairing a piece of furniture. If you are a man in retirement who has been feeling disconnected but has no interest in a traditional seniors group, look up Men's Sheds Canada. There may be one near you, and if there is not, the organization can help you start one. So there is also something quietly changing in the way Canadian doctors are thinking about loneliness. And I think it is worth knowing about because it may affect conversations you have with your own healthcare provider. More and more family doctors across Canada are beginning to recognize that a prescription for social connection can be just as important as a prescription for medication. It is called social prescribing. A doctor who identifies that a patient is isolated or lonely refers them, not to a specialist, not to a medication, but to a community connector. A real person whose job is to sit with the patient, understand what they enjoy and what is getting in the way, and personally walk them into their first visit with a local group or program. In British Columbia, Fraser Health is already doing this. They call these community connectors, seniors community connectors, and they are funded in partnership with local organizations like United Way. The goal is to remove the no one to go with barrier by literally being the person who goes with you. If you mention to your doctor that you have been feeling isolated or low lately and they seem open to it, you can ask about social prescribing programs in your area. It is not available everywhere yet, but it is growing. And knowing it exists means you can ask for it. I also want to mention intergenerational programs because these are some of the most creative and effective solutions to senior isolation running anywhere in the country right now, and they deserve far more attention. In Saskatoon, there is a long-term care home that has a grade 6 classroom inside it. Students do their regular schoolwork, but they also participate in art, music, and daily activities alongside the residents. Students report that it changed how they think about getting older. Residents say those children brought something back into their lives that they had been missing for years. The connections that form often last long after the students move on to junior high. In British Columbia, a platform called Happipad matches seniors who have a spare room with younger people, often students, who need affordable housing. The senior gets a little extra income, a presence in the house, and a sense of security. The student gets affordable rent and often an unlikely friendship. It is a quiet, practical solution to two separate problems that turns out to solve both at once. And in New Brunswick, high school students have been delivering handmade care packages to seniors in their community, people who rarely leave their homes, people whose invisible isolation would otherwise go completely unnoticed. The students describe it as one of the most meaningful things they have done. The seniors describe it as one of the brightest moments in a long, quiet week. These programs exist. They are running right now, and most seniors have never heard of them. Before we close, I want to make sure you know about two things that could matter immediately. The first is 2E111. This is a free, confidential phone line available across Canada 24 hours a day in over 150 languages. You simply dial 211 and a real person helps you find local services, transportation, social programs, senior centers, volunteer visiting programs, government benefits, food support. It is a one-stop gateway to everything that exists in your community, and it is completely free to use. If you or someone you know is feeling isolated and does not know where to start, 211 is the starting point. The second is something called the Victorian Order of Nurses, VAUGHN for short. They coordinate trained volunteers across the country who visit isolated seniors for companionship and light practical help. These are not care workers, they are volunteers who come to sit, talk, share a cup of tea, and simply be present with someone who needs it. If you live alone and would welcome a regular visitor, contact VAUGHN or your local senior services office to ask about volunteer visiting in your area. Let us bring this all together. Social isolation and loneliness among Canadian seniors are not small problems. They are a declared public health crisis affecting nearly half of all Canadians over 50. The health consequences are real and serious. Increased risk of dementia, heart disease, stroke, depression, and early death. The barriers are real too: cost, physical health, transportation, and the simple fear of walking into a room alone. But the solutions are also real. The Senior Center Without Walls gives you connection without leaving your home. Men's Sheds gives men a place to belong without having to call it belonging. Social Prescribing is bringing community connectors into doctors' offices. Intergenerational programs are building friendships across decades, and 211 can connect you to all of it in a single phone call. The most important thing I hope you take from today is this: feeling lonely or disconnected is not a personal failure. It is a health condition. It deserves the same attention as high blood pressure or a bad knee. And just like those conditions, there are things that can help. You do not have to wait until it gets worse. You can reach out now. And if someone you love is struggling in silence, this video might be the thing to share with them. Sometimes people need to hear that what they are feeling is real, that they are not alone in it, and that help is closer than they think. If this video resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need it today. And if you are not subscribed yet, please do. We post new videos every single day on Canadian pension updates, senior health, benefits, and practical guidance for retirement, all in plain, simple language. Tap subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss something that could make a difference in your life or someone else's. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Take good care of yourself and the people around you, and I will see you tomorrow.